For a lot of us, buying a house is the ultimate dream. You find the perfect place, you sign all the papers, you get the keys. It's a huge milestone. But what if the very law that's meant to protect that dream has a few hidden traps?
So picture this, you've actually done it. After all the saving and searching, you are officially the owner of your dream home. The keys are in your hand, you're standing right there on the doorstep, about to walk into your new life.
And then, what if, as you start moving your stuff in, people start showing up, one after another, each one telling you that they have some kind of legal right to your new property? No, this isn't some weird movie plot. It's a real-life possibility under UK property law.
To really get our heads around how this could happen, let's follow the story of a guy we'll call Frank. He's just bought this amazing property called Whiteacre from a man named John, and Frank thinks he did everything by the book. He really thought he'd covered all his bases. That first week, an absolute disaster. First, a guy named Mark shows up waving around a lease for one of the fields that's supposed to last for 8 years. Then, a woman named Debbie stops by saying she has a right to use a path that cuts right across the lawn. Before he can even process that, Tim appears, claiming he has a signed contract to buy the whole place. And for the grand finale, Beth gets back from a long trip and announces she's the real owner because, she paid for the entire house. So, who's right here? What on earth did Frank actually buy?
Okay, to untangle Frank's mess, we have to get back to basics. We need to look at the absolute bedrock of modern property law in the UK, the Land Register.
The best way to think of the land register is like a property's official public profile. The whole idea is that it's supposed to be a single, totally reliable source of truth, so a buyer like Frank can see exactly what he's getting into. But is it really that simple?
Well, that brings us to this really crucial idea called the special priority rule. It's a rule specifically designed to protect buyers. Basically, it says Frank is only bound by 2 kinds of things. First, any interests that are officially written down on the register. And second, this weird, special category of hidden rights called overriding interests. For everything else, he's totally free and clear. So let's see which of these 4 claims actually stick.
All right, let's start with our first visitor, Mark, the guy who says he has an 8-year lease on one of the fields.
Now, the rules for leases can be a little complicated, but this chart makes it pretty clear. You see, leases that are 7 years or shorter can sometimes be overriding interests automatically. But, and this is the key part, look at that top row. A lease for over 7 years, like Mark's, actually has to be officially registered all on its own to be considered fully legal.
So here's the bottom line for Mark. Because his lease is for 8 years, it doesn't get that automatic hidden protection. He needed to either register it himself or have a formal notice put on Whiteacre's title. If he didn't do that, Frank is in the clear. Okay, 1 visitor down, 3 to go.
Next up, we have Debbie. Remember, she had a simple written agreement with John that let her use a path across Whiteacre to get to her own house.
In the language of the law, what Debbie has is called an easement, basically a right-of-way. These are super common, but the way they're created turns out to be incredibly important.
And right here is where Debbie's claim runs into a wall. Her agreement was just a piece of paper they both signed, not a formal registered deed. And because of that, her right has a much weaker legal status. It's what lawyers call an equitable easement. And here's another key rule of the game. Equitable easements can't be overriding interests. They just don't have that hidden superpower. So if Debbie wanted her right to bind any future owner, she had to get it protected with a notice on the register. Since she didn't, Frank can, unfortunately for her, tell her to find a new route home.
Now let's turn to Tim. He says he had a written contract with John to buy the entire property. I mean, this one sounds pretty serious, right?
An agreement like this is formally known as an estate contract. It's a real, enforceable interest in the land, and it would have given Tim the right to sue John and force him to sell. But are you starting to see the pattern here? Just like Debbie's informal right, an estate contract is another one of those interests that absolutely must be protected by a notice on the register. If Tim forgot to do that, his deal with John has zero effect on Frank. So far, it looks like the register is doing its job perfectly. Frank seems to be protected.
But this last case, Beth's claim, is totally different. This is the one that reveals the biggest, most powerful, and frankly, most dangerous exception to all the rules we've just seen. This is where it all gets very, very interesting. You see, the law itself recognizes that some rights, especially the kinds that pop up informally inside a family home, are just so fundamental that they can bind a new owner even if there's absolutely no trace of them in the official paperwork. These are the overriding interests Frank was supposed to worry about.
So let's break down Beth's incredibly powerful claim. It happens in a few steps. 1. She paid for the whole house. Because of that, the law automatically says she has a beneficial interest. She's the one who gets to enjoy the benefit of it. 2. A special legal process called overreaching could have destroyed her interest, but it failed. We'll get to why in a second. And 3, because her interest wasn't wiped out, it has the potential to become an overriding interest, but only if she was in what the law calls actual occupation.
So what is this overreaching thing? Think of it as a safety mechanism for the buyer. If you buy a property and you pay the money to at least 2 legal owners, 2 trustees, then any of these hidden family-type interests get swept off the property and attached to the money instead. The buyer is safe. But here's the problem. John was the only owner. Frank only paid 1 person. The safety mechanism never kicked in.
Okay, but this feels like the final boss battle for Beth's claim. She wasn't even in the country when Frank bought the house. She was backpacking. So surely there's no way she could be in actual occupation, right?
And this is the part that blows most people's minds. The courts have actually said that being temporarily absent, even for a long time, like for a vacation or a stay in the hospital, doesn't automatically break your occupation. As long as her furniture and belongings were still there, showing she planned to come back, she's legally considered to still be there. All that mattered was whether her presence was discoverable if Frank had just inspected the property a little more carefully.
So, after all of that, where does this leave poor Frank, our new homeowner? Let's tally up the final score. And here it is, the final verdict. The land register did its job and protected Frank from Mark, Debbie, and Tim. All their rights needed to be made public on the register to be effective. But it couldn't protect him from Beth. That powerful 1-2 punch of a financial contribution plus actual occupation created a hidden right that overrides the entire sale. Frank is now legally stuck with Beth as a co-owner.
So, what is the big lesson from Frank's complete nightmare? It's that the official paperwork is only ever half the story. Yes, the register is your starting point, but the biggest risks are the ones you can only discover by physically walking around the land. You have to put on your detective hat. Are there unexplained tire tracks on a path? Is there farming equipment in a field that shouldn't be there? Does it look like someone else's clothes are in the closet?
It really all boils down to this one simple thought. The next time you walk through a house you're thinking of buying, you're not just looking at the size of the rooms or the condition of the paint. You're looking for ghosts. You're looking for the unseen owners whose rights might just be hiding in plain sight. So what clues would you be looking for?